If I asked you to picture the average pickleball player, you'd paint a portrait of a pretty gray retiree who wants to participate in a pastime that won't cause them pain. But the reality is, the average pickleballer looks a lot more like me instead. That's right, the largest groups of pickleball players are now Gen Z and millennials, overtaking the boomers that made the game a thing in the first place.
So, how did we get here?
Why did a bunch of young-ish people pick up a game that felt spiritually uncool just 5 years ago and turn it into the fastest growing sport in America? To find our answer, we're gonna have to zoom out and take a look at the current wellness industry in America and how that craze used high school gyms, social media influencers, and even RFK Jr. to cement pickleball as the trendy new sport for young people. Hi, my name is Nathan Denzine, and I used to be a pretty good journalist, so you can trust me. So if we want to figure out why youngish people dominate pickleball courts, we need to understand where the sport came from in the first place. The story goes that in 1965, 3 guys got together and they were challenged by their teenage sons to make a sport out of 3 different pieces of equipment: a table tennis paddle, a wiffle ball, and a badminton net. So they came up with a game that mixes aspects from all of the sports and kind of mashed them all into one. It was an instant hit with the family, and a sport was born. 2 years later, the first dedicated pickleball court was constructed in a friend's backyard, and the whole neighborhood started to play each other. With some initial rave reviews, Pritchard figured he might have something pretty special on his hand. That's why he formed Pickleball Incorporated to help sell and market the sport around the country. Over the next 3 decades, he pushed his sport as hard as he could, setting up invitational tournaments and a few other promotions.
For the most part, he only found success in high school gym classes. But that meant that as the years went on, thousands of kids knew how to play his game, but just didn't have anywhere to play it outside of school.
Enter the Villages, Florida. As white Republican snowbirds started to flock south for the winter in search of camaraderie and a friendship of Donald Trump, they brought pickleball with them.
By using a little tape, they could turn any community tennis court into a pickleball arena instead.
Pickleball became a way for seniors in the villages to stay active and make new friends in their community. It was really the first boom for pickleball, and the sport continued to pick up steam in retirement communities all over America. By 2008, there were about 1,500 pickleball courts across America, mostly in retirement communities. By 2015, there were over 12,000 courts. The sport was clearly growing in popularity, but still trended towards an older player base. That's because the game was still very popular in retirement communities, but most of the other growth came from private clubs, not public parks. That's because public parks mostly thought of pickleball as a fad, while private clubs realized that they could make way more money cramming more people onto their courts. It took a few more years for that mindset to change, but courts started to pop up all over public parks right before the pandemic. And this is where the sport started to get younger. As we all found ourselves inside for weeks on end, all of us wanted to do was get outside and stay active while still being socially distant. It was pickleball's time to break out of its shell. In 2020, about 4.2 million Americans played pickleball. By 2025, that number was up to 24 million. In that time, the average age dropped too, starting at 38 years old and dropping to 35. And while 35 isn't like technically young, I do think that that number is still skewed a little bit old. The most recent age demographics released on pickleball come from 2023 and actually suggest that the median age is a little bit lower than 35. That year, there were 13.6 million pickleball players, and the largest age bracket in there was the 24 to 35-year-olds. The second largest group were our over 65s, the seniors that we relate to pickleball anyway, and the third largest group of players were between 18 and 24. In addition, 1 million kids picked up pickleball that year, and they were actually the 4th largest age demographic. And then since 2023, there have been 9 million new players added to pickleball. So while the average age is 35, you're much more likely to see somebody younger than 35 on the court than somebody older. This brings us to the present, where pickleball is likely to continue its meteoric rise of niche sports. But we still haven't actually answered the question of why so many young people are picking up the paddle. Tennis, pickleball's cousin, is a much sexier sport that gets much more time on screen. It's got similar age demographics, but it hasn't seen the same type of meteoric jump that pickleball has. It's obvious why seniors like the sport. It's not nearly as intense as other activities that you could do. I just think it's a little bit weird that an old person's game has become so common for 20-year-olds to play. And this is where we need to take a step back and stop looking at the sport in isolation, because health and wellness have changed a lot over the last 5 years. Since the pandemic, there has been an explosion of products, social media influencers, and even politicians who have been telling us that the way that we are approaching health is wrong.
I'm not scared of a germ. I used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats.
And I think that shift in perspective is exactly why pickleball has taken off.
Here are a couple of potentially conflicting statistics.
Somewhere between 23 and 30% of Americans report prioritizing their health a lot more than they did a year ago. There has also been no statistically significant change in the number of Americans who are active right now versus in 2020.
I say potentially because they're not actually measuring the same thing. Plus, one of these statistics is from McKinsey and the other one is from the CDC, so it's not exactly like we're comparing apples to apples here.
But the conflict in those two statements gives us a clue of why pickleball has had its meteoric rise. Since COVID scared the everlasting shit out of us, the wellness economy has boomed. The global wellness industry is now bigger than sports, IT, pharmaceuticals, and is 60% of the global healthcare spend. In the United States alone, consumers spend more than $500 billion a year on wellness stuff.
So, what counts as wellness?
The Global Wellness Institute describes it as the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. So basically, everything. You probably couldn't count hammers in this bucket, but you could count vitamins, natural foods, skincare products, traditional medicine, energy healing practices, and a whole bunch of other shit. Probably even an ayahuasca trip if you ever needed a darkness cave to figure out if you wanted to retire or not.
I think part of the real joy in this work is it's such a feminine spirit of ayahuasca.
The sector grows more than 5% a year, and that's been accelerating. It's just been accelerating unevenly. Pickleball counts as physical activities in these market categories, and that just hasn't grown nearly as fast as stuff like real estate or tourism. Yes, pickleball itself has seen massive growth, but the industry as a whole really hasn't. While physical activity is the third largest market sector, it still has a pretty similar number of people in it as it did in 2019. Compare that to wellness real estate, where a brand new chiropractor seems to pop up every single day who is just rearing to absolutely fuck your shit up. And that sector of the wellness industry is expected to just keep growing and growing and growing as people age and longevity treatments start to become a thing.
And what's driving this growth?
There are a number of factors why, but generally speaking, there's two big reasons. Number one, the world population is aging. Birth rates aren't keeping up with replacement levels in most places in the world, especially places like Korea or Japan, but America hasn't had a birth rate over replacement level since 2008. As we all know, as we get older, more health problems start to pop up. Which leads us to our second factor. Healthcare systems are extremely strained. Between economic hardship and an aging population, doctors and nurses are increasingly getting burnt out and ever more expensive. About 1 in 5 hospitals in the US are in severe financial distress, with about 566 of them who are near closing. It affects both urban and rural areas, making our already ridiculous healthcare even more expensive and less accessible. Those two factors combined have been forcing people to figure out how to fix their health problems on their own. That might mean practicing healthier habits early on in life so you don't end up with those chronic conditions when you're old, or spending money on alternative health products with dubious claims, or injecting your body full of chemicals that haven't even really been tested yet. Or it might mean listening to this guy.
I want to seem like I'm being evasive.
Yeah.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
Politics and social media influencers have undoubtedly made an impact on how regular people approach their health post-pandemic. You can see raw milk influencers or guys who encourage steroid use or longevity freaks, all of which used to be fringe ideas but have been brought into the mainstream over the last 5 years. I think the most emblematic of this change is RFK Jr., a guy who has repeatedly said that vaccines cause autism and is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services. While he does have plenty of really bad takes, his general aura of staying fit, eating healthy, and never taking off your jeans is something that has resonated with tons of people. The Make America Healthy Again movement drew millions of followers, and obesity has dropped consistently since 2022.
How much credit can be given to Kennedy? Probably not much.
Another set of statistics show that GLP-1s like Ozempic or Wegovy have really driven weight loss a lot more than anything else. Nearly an eighth of Americans are on one of these drugs, and since 2022, nearly 8 million Americans are now not obese.
With all of these things going on in the health space at the same time, I knew that I needed to talk to an expert to help me make sense of all these numbers.
And you'll barely notice it, but one of my cameras is just a little bit out of focus. Do you think pickleball is a little baby sport for babies?
I think it might be.
Jake Anderson is a personal trainer who mainly works with millennials and Gen Zers who already have pickles on the mind.
Sorry, pickleballers, but I still respect it. I still respect it.
He's also my friend from high school and a guy who had to do the McDonald's challenge after losing fantasy football last year.
According to Jake, I was kind of right that the main difference in how people manage their health can be traced back to the internet.
Number one, I would say that there is a lot of good information being put out there online now. That's really been corrected over the last 5 years, and I think it's especially led to women's fitness improving.
While I did focus a lot on the bad actors online, Jake is right. There are plenty of health influencers out there who aren't peddling bad information, and according to Pew Research, about 2/3 of health influencers online are women, and women control about 85% of the spending on health and wellness in the industry.
Now, obviously, there's always going to be misinformation being put on there, but I think that over the course of the last 5 years, the good information has won that battle.
If you take a look at pickleball demographics over the last 3 years, that trend is also starting to show up in the data. In their 2022 report, CIFA estimated that there were about 40% of female players playing pickleball, but in 2025, that number had jumped to 43%.
It's a pretty fun sport. I don't even play it a lot. I prefer tennis, but pickleball's still really fun. You can get really, really advanced at it, but it's also good for entry-level people too, because you don't need to be a really, really great athlete to get into it and play competitively.
While that is a great proposal for people who are already active, he too has seen the difference between people who actually want to make a change in their health versus the people who are just saying it because it's the hot new thing in town.
I ran an event one time at a nutrition shop, and I set up a table there and I was giving away free sessions. And the response that I got from a lot of people was, thanks for the offer, but I have a gym at home. And I don't try to be too judgmental, but I would bet that a lot of those people that have a gym at home, they don't use it very often.
That's because at home you can sit around in your pajamas, but it would be really weird if you did that in a gym. So we have two segments of Americans: those who are already active and want to stay active, which hasn't grown very much, versus those who want to get their health in control but aren't getting very active, which has grown a ton. Pickleball falls in that active segment, so hopefully if we just focus on those people, we can help explain the rise of the sport. Of our active Americans, there are more working out at home now than there were pre-pandemic. And while you probably don't have a pickleball court at home, it's much easier to go to a public park and find one than it would be to go to a gym. Plus, it's really cheap. A decent pickleball set's only going to run you $50 to $100. So if you want to stay active and you don't want to spend too much money on it, it might be the perfect bar for entry.
The hardest thing to do is to get to the gym. I would much rather see people get out and get active. That's what matters a lot more.
But pickleball can help you with more than just physical activity and combat a crisis that's been unfolding in America for years. Last year, nearly 1 in 10 American adults experienced some sort of mental health crisis. And 1 in 7 kids in America experience some sort of mental health disorder every year. And suicide is the second leading cause of death in Americans between 10 and 34. The modern mental health crisis emerged about a decade ago, but it was really supercharged by the pandemic. 1 in 3 Americans say that they feel lonely on a regular basis, and young Americans only spend about 5 hours a week hanging out with their friends, which is down from 13 hours a week in 2010. And I think a big reason for this is that it's gotten easier than ever to sit at home and chill on your couch. You can get food delivered right to your house, talk to your friends on a headset over Discord, and have a wonderful conversation with your AI waifu anime girlfriend. All the things that used to put you in contact with other people. Shopping, hanging out with your friends, or dating can now all be done on your phone.
And it is rotting our souls.
But I'm certainly not the only person who thinks this way.
I go to a run club every week, and I hate running. And I literally only do it because I'm friends with people there. So pickleball can be the same way.
That's right. Pickleball is a golden opportunity to be social. It's the very same reason old people in the villages picked it up in the first place. Because it's pretty easy to pick up, more people are willing to play pickleball, which leaves you a larger active pool to make friends.
The variance in the degree of how good everybody is a little bit smaller than tennis or even other sports.
If you're already one of the Americans who stays active, what sounds more fun to you? A 5-mile run alone, or playing pickleball for an hour and a half with some friends? In the demographic where pickleball is really taking off, 18 to 34-year-olds, it's one of the few activities where you still get to play a team sport. Plus, like we said earlier, Pickleball is pretty cheap. You can wear normal workout clothes to a public park and get an entire season of workouts in. So we're really looking at a cross-section of people that pickleball is perfectly designed for.
Health-conscious, active people who enjoy playing sports on a budget.
And I think that's exactly why pickleball has become one of the fastest-growing sports in the world. But we have seen health trends fizzle out before. So the big question is pickleball even gonna stay around?
Or fade back into obscurity like jazzercise.
I asked Jake, our tennis enthusiast, the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thanks, Jake.
I think a high percentage of people will stick with it.
Tennis, pickleball's closest cousin, has been around since the Middle Ages. It's just a basic human fact that we love to hit a little ball back and forth to each other. While there are other similar racket sports around, like badminton or squash, I think pickleball has a leg up on them for a few reasons. The first is that you can make a pickleball court out of any tennis court in America, and there are a lot of tennis courts in America. And the second is that it's easier to pick up than basically any other racket sport that's out there. So for those reasons, combined with the social and the physical health aspects, makes me think that pickleball is going to be around for a long time. Will it ever reach the prestige of tennis? Probably not. But I do think it'll stick around for everyday people for decades to come. And if you disagree with me, I'd tell you... That's all I got for you. Anything else you want to add?
Go Crew.
Fuck. God damn it.